Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Ready to jump into today's topic?
Absolutely. So today's deep dive, well, it's into a current affairs issue. It's something that's going to be, I think, really important for you all prepping for the UPSC exams.
Yeah, definitely. Big implications for both prelims and mains here.
Exactly. So we're looking at this Supreme Court interim order.
Oh, you mean the Ranveer Allahbadia case?
That's the one. And before anyone thinks this is just some gossip about a YouTuber,
Yeah, no.
it's way more than that. This case, it brings up some seriously important questions about free speech in India.
And how those questions are, well, they're even more complicated now because of, the whole digital landscape and everything.
Right. It's like free speech 2.0 almost.
Eh.
So much to unpack. But okay, let's back up for a sec. For those who might not be totally familiar, who is this Ranveer Allahbadia and what's he done?
Well, he's a pretty popular YouTuber, influencer, that kind of thing. And he has this show, India Got Latent.
Okay, I've heard of that.
And basically, he's facing multiple FIRs, which is
Well, hold on, multiple.
yeah, I know. From different states because of supposedly obscene and explicit content on the show. Now, look, we're not here to pass judgment on the content itself.
Right, not our place.
The point is that the court's decision, what they decided to do with this case, that's what we want to understand. It's about the bigger picture.
The implications for free speech in India and really free speech everywhere where the internet reaches.
Exactly. So let's just break it down step by step, all right?
Perfect, yeah. I'm ready. First off, can we just make sure everyone's on the same page?
Yeah.
What exactly do we mean when we say gag order? And what tools are available in India, legally speaking, to enforce them? I mean, it sounds kind of scary.
Well, imagine, right? A judge is like, you're not allowed to talk about this case publicly. That's a gag order in a nutshell.
Okay, I see. So it's like they're shutting down discussion about it.
Yeah, basically. It's a restriction. It can be formal, legal, sometimes it's more informal, but it limits what someone can say or even publish about something. In India, this can happen a few different ways. So you've got Section 144 of the Criminal Procedure Code.
CRPC.
Right. That one gives the government power to restrict gatherings and pronouncements if there's a threat to public order.
Ah, so it's like if things are getting out of control, they can use that to calm things down.
Exactly. Prevents things from, turning into chaos. Then you've got the Contempt of Court Act. That prevents people from publicly discussing ongoing cases, in a way that could sway the outcome.
I guess that makes sense. You don't want people trying to influence the judges or anything.
Right. Got to protect that judicial process.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's Article 19.2 of the Constitution. It guarantees free speech, but it also allows for these, what they call reasonable restrictions.
Okay, so even the Constitution says there are times when you can limit free speech.
Well, yeah, if it's in the interest of, national security, public order, decency, morality, things like that.
So it's all about finding that balance.
Exactly. Protecting free speech, but also preventing harm.
A delicate balance, for sure. Now, this is where I get a little lost. Where does the Supreme Court, what's their stance on this whole reasonable restrictions thing? How do they decide when it's okay to limit free speech?
So the Supreme Court, they've always emphasized that any restriction on those fundamental rights, including free speech, it has to be justified, has to be proportionate to what's going on. It can't be arbitrary,
Okay, so it's not just like a whim. They have to have a good reason.
Exactly. And especially when they're granting this interim relief, like, say, protection from arrest, you can't just throw in any condition you want. It has to make sense.
So then how does this social media ban on Allahbadia fit into all of this? To me, it seems pretty extreme, cutting someone off from their main platform, especially when their work depends on it.
Yeah, and that's where it gets interesting. To really get the court's logic, you got to look at some past rulings, some precedents, and this is where it gets super relevant for UPSC prep, by the way.
Oh, good point. Case studies and all that.
Yeah. So there's this 2022 case, Partik Bansal versus State of Rajasthan. The court, they were really critical of this practice of filing multiple FIRs against someone for the same offense. They were like, come on, you can't just keep piling on charges because someone messed up once.
Wait, isn't that what's happening with Allahbadia, though? Multiple FIRs for the same content, right?
Thank you. And that's what makes it relevant. So is it fair to punish him repeatedly for the same content by, banning him from social media on top of everything else? That's the question.
Yeah. Okay. I'm starting to see the connection. What other cases are important to understand this?
Okay, so there's this other case, Satinder Kumar and Till versus CBI, also from 2022. In this one, the court said they really stress that bail conditions, they have to be reasonable.
Reasonable, yeah.
Not like, placing unnecessary restrictions on someone, like saying, okay, you're out on bail, but you can't use a phone, leave your house, or talk to anyone. That'd be crazy.
Definitely, yeah. So is banning someone from social media, especially if that's how they work, is that really reasonable? I don't know. Seems debatable to me.
That's the whole point. It raises these questions about, is the punishment fitting the crime? Is it proportionate? And this leads us to Frank Vitus versus Narcotics Control Bureau. This one's from 2024. So in this case, the court, they struck down a bail condition. It required the accused to share their location, like real time, through Google Maps.
Whoa, serious Big Brother vibes there.
Right. And they said, nope, that's a violation of privacy, Article 21 of the Constitution.
So, okay, if sharing your location is violating your privacy, what about social media? I mean, could this ban be seen as violating free speech under Article 19? They're both fundamental rights.
Now you're thinking. And it gets even stronger when we look at Rahana Fatima. That was in 2021.
Okay, remind me, what was that one about?
So Supreme Court overturned a Kerala High Court order. That order had restricted activist Rahana Fatima. They restricted her from posting online while she was out on bail.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And the Supreme Court said that kind of restriction, it could have a chilling effect on free speech. Like, people would be afraid to express themselves if they think they'll get into legal trouble for it.
So it's like one restriction leads to another, and soon everyone's afraid to speak their mind.
Yeah, that's the worry. But then, wait, wasn't there that case with Mohammed Zubair too?
You're right. The Alt News co-founder and the Supreme Court refused to ban him from tweeting, right?
Yeah.
Even though he was out on bail.
Exactly. That was Mohammed Zubair versus Uttar Pradesh, also 2021. They said banning his tweets would be totally unjustified, violating his free speech.
Okay, so two similar cases, but opposite outcomes. Why the different approach with Allahbadia? I'm getting a little lost here.
That's the question, right? And it's exactly the kind of tricky legal issue the UPSC loves. You've got potential violations of Articles 19 and 21. You've got this question of proportionality and reasonable restrictions. And then the whole impact on digital content creators. It's a lot.
It is a lot to digest for sure. But that's why we're here, right? To break it all down.
That's right. And we're just getting started.
All right, so we've been talking about this Ranveer Allahbadia case.
Yeah.
And I think what's really sticking with me is, like, what does all of this mean for the future of, speech online, digital speech in India? It feels like we're in kind of uncharted waters here.
Yeah, and that's the point. This whole case, no matter how it ends up, it's really put a spotlight on how hard it is to, regulate speech online. It's a whole new world.
So you're saying the old rules don't work anymore? Like what we had before the internet just doesn't apply?
I wouldn't say that. It's more like we have to interpret those rules differently. Think about reasonable restrictions. What's reasonable changes so much when you're talking about the internet,
It is true. A tweet can go viral in the seconds, reach millions of people. It's not like a newspaper article just sitting there in your town.
Exactly. That speed, the scale of things online, it creates these new challenges for everyone, the content creators, the people trying to keep things in check. It's a real balancing act.
So what do we do? Do we need totally new laws just for online stuff? Seems impossible to keep up.
That's one way to go, but it's not that easy. New laws can have, consequences you don't expect. What we really need is an approach that's, more sensitive, more balanced, something that gets the internet is different, but also remembers those fundamental rights.
Okay, nuance and balance, I hear you. But how do we get there? From lofty ideas to actual change?
Well, for one, we need to make those legal safeguards stronger. The ones that prevent arbitrary bans, censorship, all that. But they have to be updated for the internet age.
Okay, what does that even mean? Updated safeguards. Give me an example.
So any gag order, whether it's online or not, it should have a time limit. It should be reviewed regularly to make sure it's still needed, that it's proportionate to the situation. It can't just be a forever thing,
No indefinite bans without a good reason and a fair process, basically.
Right. Proportionality has to be the main thing. If you're restricting free speech, especially with something big like a social media ban, it's got to be justified. And limited, both in how long it lasts and how broad it is. Don't use a sledgehammer when you need a scalpel kind of thing.
Okay, I'm with you. Clearer guidelines, more transparency, focus on proportionality. What else is important?
This one's often missed, but we have to foster media literacy and critical thinking among just regular people.
Wait, how does that connect back to, gag orders and free speech?
Because we're drowning in information now. It's more important than ever that people can tell what's a good source and what's not, to look at different points of view and have real conversations, even about tough topics.
So more educated, informed people, they'll be able to deal with, like, the free speech stuff better, less likely to be, I don't know, manipulated or tricked.
Exactly. And this ties back to UPSC, media ethics, social media's role, how to regulate online content. Those topics are only getting more important.
Okay, that's good to know. So just to sum up, we've got to have those clear guidelines for gag orders, make sure they're proportional, time-bound, and people can challenge them. And we have to make sure people are smart about what they see online. Be critical thinkers.
And this conversation, it's not over, This whole legal landscape around digital speech, it's changing all the time. Cases like this one, they're going to keep shaping it as we go.
So speaking of shaping the conversation, what can our listeners do? I mean, to stay informed about all this.
Stay informed, yeah. And don't just read headlines. Look deeper into the legal stuff, what experts are saying. Find different viewpoints. Don't take what you see on social media as, the whole story.
And talk about it. Have discussions online, in person, share your views, listen to others, think about all the different sides.
Yeah, having those conversations, that's how we figure this all out. It's how we make good decisions.
Who knows, maybe some comment on this episode will be the start of the next big legal debate.
That'd be great. Informed people, that's what makes a democracy work, right?
True that. All right, well, we'll be back with part 3, where we'll get into some practical stuff. Strategies for tackling these legal topics in the UPSC exam.
We'll give you the tools, the insights you need to analyze those cases, build good arguments, and impress those examiners. It's going to be good.
All right, we're back. And for this final part, we're going to shift gears a bit.
Time to get practical.
Exactly. We've been talking about gag orders, free speech online, all that. Now let's talk about how this stuff actually shows up in your UPSC exams.
Think of this as your toolkit for those tricky legal questions, especially the essay parts. Those can be tough.
Okay, so what are the key strategies? How should our listeners approach these topics when they're studying?
First thing, remember, UPSC, they don't just want you to memorize stuff. They want to see you think.
Critically.
Yeah. Analyze different viewpoints, build your own arguments, that kind of thing. Show them you can think like a future civil servant.
So it's not enough to just, I don't know, list out articles from the Constitution or something.
Nope. You got to go deeper, show them you get the principles behind the laws, how they connect, what they mean in real life.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we actually do that? What are the, insider tips here?
Practice. Analyze case studies, just like we did with this Allahbadia case. Break it down. What are the facts, the legal issues? What are the arguments for and against the court's decision?
So it's like solving a puzzle.
Kind of, yeah. You got to connect those dots, see the bigger picture, and don't be afraid to bring in other cases, legal stuff, even what's going on in the news right now. It shows you can connect things.
So it's like building this, I don't know, this web of knowledge.
Exactly. Everything's connected, especially with law and policy. Another thing, being able to explain your arguments clearly, that's super important too.
Yeah, because even if you have a great idea, if you can't write it down well.
Exactly. It's not going to help. So practice writing essays, answers. Look at all sides of the issue, then come to your conclusion, but make sure you can support it. A balanced view, that's what they want.
And don't forget, time management. Those exams, the clock is ticking.
Oh, for sure. Got to practice writing under pressure so you can get all your thoughts down in time. It's a skill.
Good point. Okay, so let's say there's a question about a specific case, like Partik Bansal or the Mohammed Zubair one. What should our listeners do?
Give a good summary. The facts, the legal points, the court's ruling. But don't stop there. Connect it back to those bigger themes. Free speech, gag orders, what it means for democracy.
So show them you get the context, not just the little details.
Right. Now, what if it's a broader essay question, like discuss the challenges of regulating free speech online?
Ooh, yeah, that's a big one.
That's where you got to really show your analytical skills. Start by defining things. What do we even mean by free speech? How have those protections changed over time? Then talk about the internet specifically. What makes it so challenging?
It's like a whole new world of problems, right?
It is. Think about how fast stuff spreads online, the anonymity, people talking across borders, the sheer volume of information. It's crazy. But that's where your brain comes in. Explore those different perspectives. Think about what works and what doesn't, different ways to regulate things. Even come up with your own solutions.
Be bold, be creative, and back it up with evidence, right?
Exactly. UPSC, they want people who can think for themselves. So show them you can handle the tough stuff. This whole landscape of free speech and the law, it's constantly changing. You got to keep up.
This deep dive has been, I don't know, it's been really eye-opening. We talked about all the legal details of gag orders, the challenges of regulating speech online, and now we've given you some tools to use in your exams. Hopefully you're feeling more confident now.
Remember, this journey to becoming an IAS officer, it takes knowledge, critical thinking, and that passion for justice. Never stop learning, asking questions, and trying to make a difference.
And keep listening to the deep dive. We'll keep bringing you these in-depth looks at current affairs, legal stuff, everything you need for UPSC.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything. Leave us your comments and questions too. We love hearing from you.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, best of luck with your studies. And just so you know, all this info came from The Hindu, so it's reliable and up to date.